Welcome to Felicity Yarn Studio. My name is Zoe, and this is one of my little corners of the internet where I like to share what I have been making within the fiber arts. So for today, that is primarily going to include knitting and spinning. If you want to find me on any of my other little corners of the internet, social media, or find my Etsy shop, I will leave links to that down below in the description box. That is also where you will be able to find links or timestamps to anything else that I talk about today. So I hope that everyone is doing well. I hope that you had a lovely holiday season. We had a really nice kind of relaxed holiday. We did go and stay with my parents for a few days and saw some of Jason's family. But we came back and kind of chilled out for the new year. It was kind of nice to just be here and be relaxed by ourselves for a little bit. So yeah, it's now mid-January. I think the last time that I recorded was like mid-December. So yeah, I kind of seem to be on a monthly schedule and I'm okay with that. I hope that y'all are okay with that, but it just seems to be what works for me. I usually have a decent amount of stuff to share after a month or so. So with that being said, I have quite a lot to share today. This whole kind of basket pile thing happening over here. And I wanted to note that I'm gonna kind of change things up a little bit today and break with tradition, break with format. Everybody usually does FOs, whips, and I usually throw my spinning at the end, but I'm going to jump in with my spinning because it kind of correlates to some of my whips, and then I'll leave my FOs for the end. So up top, I wanted to share my Laurel spin that I finished. I think this was the first thing that I finished when we got back from the holiday. I don't remember. But this is a bump from Loop Fibers, and the colorway is called So Subtle. So as you can tell there, it looks like it's striping in the skein, and that is because it is a gradiated bump. Oliver, you here to give your 2 cents? He likes to sleep under the daybed in here, so I'm interrupting his nap space. What are you doing? What do you think? Do you like it? I know, you're a goober. So yes, since this was a gradient, it kind of shifted from the whites to the creams into the grays and then back out again. I think there were about 5 color shifts in this, so like 5 repeats of the gray. That was kind of the easiest for me to keep track of. Since it was a color shifting kind of bump, I decided to chain ply it or Navajo ply it in order to preserve those color changes, as I'm planning on using this for the contrast color in my Laurel jumper. So I have 2 thoughts right now. I don't want to lose either one of them. So the first one is Gemma of the Gemma B Makes podcast and I are going to be hosting a knit along, a Laurel along, if you will. So that is going to start on February 1st and run through January 30th. I ran a little poll on Instagram, and the most popular response was to host it in an Instagram chat room. So I will be setting that up. If you are interested in joining, if you've already picked out your yarn, feel free to message me and we will get that started early if you guys want to chat a little earlier. If not, you've got a few weeks to kind of pick out some yarn if you're interested in doing that. So my sister Naomi, she was also supposed to be a part of this. She's got a few life things that I'm sure she wants to share with you guys, and I will let her do that. So she'll probably participate, but I don't know if she'll be a part of running this. I'm committing her to it now, so that's what enabling sisters do for each other. The knit along is coming. So, okay, I actually have a third train of thought here. So I had to decide on my main color for this knit along. So I think I've decided on my main body color. I don't know. I'm so indecisive on this one. I don't know why. This was what I had originally planned to do, was this kind of deep, dark charcoal gray. And I actually don't hate it. I do like seeing it in person more now. But again, my gut instinct is always to go softer pastel shades. So I have this avocado dyed, non-superwash wool. I have like 6 skeins of this just sitting around that I have absolutely no plans for. But it's kind of not contrasty enough. I mean, I am okay with low contrast color work. I know some people don't like it, but I think this is a little bit too close. I actually have my swallowtail sweater down here, and you guys, I think I'm gonna frog that thing. It's sat for over 2 years now, and I just don't feel the pull to work on it, and I would like to use the yarn for something else. So this was one of the colorways from my swallowtail. It's one of my shop colorways called Pink Sky. And you know, I'm a fan of neon-y peachy pink, especially when it's a pastel like that, but it still doesn't feel right. So one of my other colorways from the sweater is Early Shadows, and it's kind of somewhere in between that deep charcoal and kind of those mid-tones in the skein. So yeah, if I use this color, the only thing is that I have to dye myself up, I think 3 of them. I only have 2 set aside in the swallowtail as of right now. Or I can just go with the one that I already have 3 or 4 skeins dyed up as. I mean, they're not hugely different. I'm trying to see. I should just go with my original. Just do it. Stop overthinking it, Zoe. Just do it. So yeah, that's my Laurel sweater choices. The only other thing I want to talk about this real quick is I am not here for chain plying. Kudos to those of you who do that on a regular basis. It just does not feel natural to me. I did the chain plying on my Ladybug, and in the past I have attempted it on my e-wheel. The e-wheel was definitely not enjoyable. Doing it on my Ladybug was a little bit better, but I actually wound up with what I would consider some slightly overspun spots on this skein. Wow, alliteration. It's not horrible. Like, I finally soaked it and let it dry yesterday. I didn't like weight down the skein or anything, and it all kind of hung a little loosely, a little straighter. I don't know, I just didn't enjoy the process. I don't like the movements. It kind of hurts my shoulder. So I'm okay with being a traditional plier and foregoing gradient spins in the future. The next thing that I wanted to share with you guys, this is the spin that I started when we got home from our traveling, and this is a braid of Malabrigo. I'm not going to go on too long about this. I don't even remember the colorway name. I will try to find the tag downstairs and pop it on the screen for you. But I picked up this braid a few years ago. Actually, it was right before lockdown. It was when we did our little impromptu yarn crawl around the Raleigh-Durham area. I believe I got this one at Freeman's Creative. And this spin was just supposed to be a very simple palette cleanser. It was going to go towards my shift blanket that I will eventually one of these days knit. The problem that I encountered with this braid is I don't know if it's a Malabrigo thing, like with their dyeing process, or if it is has something to do with the way that they ship their fiber, if they compact it down so much. It was slightly felty. It was not enjoyable to spin. So I know Naomi's had that problem in the past, and I had read about a little hack or trick, if you will, to try to revive some felted fiber back to life, and that is to pass it over some steam, like a pot of boiling water, or I also did one strip of the fiber over my electric kettle. I don't know why I just had a brain fart there. Yeah, it's got like a keep warm function, so just every few seconds it would pop back on, and it produced kind of constant steam for me. It took a braid that was really miserable to work with at first and made it spinnable for me. I know there's probably a point of no return for a felted braid, but it worked for this. So if you've got a slightly felty braid, don't despair. Try that trick first. It costs you nothing. I did make a little reel about it and I put it on Instagram. So if you're so inclined to go and check it out there as well. So yeah, nothing really more to talk about on this spin other than I kind of fell out of love with it really quickly and jumped into some other spinning, which kind of bookends with one of the new cast-ons and one of the whips that I have going on. So we'll move on to that next. It's this one. All right, I have been talking for a while now about how I have wanted to cast on the Shifty by Andrea and Mowry. I fell in love with my night shift. It was so much fun to knit, and I have a ton of kind of fingering to sport weight handspun yarn. I've been spinning for a little over 2 years now, so a lot of these that I pulled for this jumper were some of my early spins. But yes, I started my Shifty. Shifty is the jumper, right? I think so. Anyway, I started my Shifty, and yeah, I love how this is working up. So I'll pull out what I'm working with here in a second. So again, a lot of these are some of my first handspun yarns. The green at the top is from Spun Right Round. The pink color is from John Arbin. That was in my Jupiter crop, and the light green on the second section, that was also from my Jupiter crop. And the purple is from Spinning Mermaid. So, okay, here we go. There's gonna be a lot of juggling here. So that's that combination. And this. In addition to those, I have, actually, let me just pop on the screen all the stuff that I kind of pulled for this knit. Once I started, I kind of fell in love, shocker, with this pastel palette. So I think I'm gonna pull out some of these deeper shades, like these two from my Jupiter crop. It's not a ton of yarn and I may use them, but I'm really kind of loving this whole vibe. Speaking of which, I forgot to mention up at the top, I am wearing the French terry top. I did this test knit early last year around March, I believe. It's kind of an all over brioche honeycomb pattern. I'll leave all the information down in the description box for that as well. So I'm gonna pop these over here. So once I decided, okay, I really like where this is headed as is, I decided that I would probably need to abandon some things and work a few more things into the palette. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this one. This is some Polworth silk. This is one of my very first spins that I picked up at SAF 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I don't know. It was whenever I first started spinning. It's a little bright, but I think it'll work good for the little blips on this pattern. This was another one from my Jupiter crop, another one that I dyed up. And then what else do I have in here? I think there's one or two more. This was another one of my very first spins. It was some Rollags from Blue Barn Fibers that I kind of tried to do in a 2-ply fractal that I tried to do in a 2-ply fractal-esque manner. So there's more like kind of peach towards the center and more of the green on the inside, outside. This was a bat. This is actually fiber that I found before I started spinning, sent it down to Naomi and she put it through her drum carder and made me a bat. And I don't remember how I spun this, but again, it was one of my very first spins. They can't all be very first spins, can they? After determining that, you know, I wanted to kind of stick with like a pastel background and do the blips in a little bit brighter shades, I came up to my fiber stash and I pulled out some fiber from John Arbin that Naomi gifted me. Who knows when. I know that this is one of the colors that she used in her Jupiter crop. I don't remember the colorway, and I believe it was Corriedale. This spun up so quickly. I did a 2-ply, I did it on my e-wheel, and I spun both of the singles all in one day. Like, I don't know what was going on, what kind of magic was in the air. I just kind of got sucked in and it really just spun itself. I think part of it is that the Corriedale has a longer staple length, so I could really draft out quickly or a large volume. I don't know if that's right. I don't know. It was a joy to spin though, and it's very soft and very squishy, which is kind of the opposite of some of these of my very first spins, which are a little bit ropey. They're a little bit overspun in some spots. Not all of them, but it's fine. I think that this sweater is going to be pretty forgiving, and I'm really looking forward to now really getting back into this one, because I kind of paused to spin this up, and then you'll see a few other things that caught my eye. I'm a little bit in squirrel mode, like, ooh, shiny, I want to work on this. Ooh, I want to work on that. Like, I keep jumping from project to project, but it feels really good to just be working on what I want to work on and what is like fulfilling me at the moment. I have one last spin to share with you guys, and this was kind of, again, a byproduct of starting the Shifty. So as I was going through my stash trying to find some kind of pastel things to spin up to go with the Shifty, I found the Scrappy bundles that I had from Wound Up Fiber Arts. I have used about half of one of the bags. I had 2 bags of them, so I had about 150 grams of scraps left over. My initial plan had been to find the ones that I wanted out of there, split them in half, and then just do another 2-ply skein and use it in the Shifty. So I started that, and then I just started looking at them more and more, what I hadn't planned on using, and I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna use all of it. I'm gonna just spin all of this up and get it out of my stash. So the first 2 bobbins, they are equal parts of the same colors, just kind of rearranged in order so that they wouldn't exactly line up with them. And then the third bobbin was kind of the like oranges and golds and rust tones. And you guys, I made the prettiest skein of yarn. I had no intentions of making this. I knew once I started spinning up the kind of golds and oranges that I wasn't going to use it in my Shifty, and that is perfectly okay with me. Also adding that 3rd ply brought it up to like a DK weight yarn, whereas I'm trying to use fingering to sport for the sweater. So I finished plying this last night. I haven't even set the twist in it yet. I am so in love with this thing. It is so gorgeous. Like, it is the prettiest thing that I have ever spun. I love the randomness of it. I had no idea what was going to ply together where, what kind of color combinations I was going to get. I was really worried because I'm not a huge orange and red fan, at least not like primary color kind of shades like that. So I think that's why I kind of hesitated for so long to spin up those scrappy bits. I'm kicking myself now because this is like the prettiest thing ever to me. So as I was plying it together and I was thinking about what I wanted to use this for now, I have 2 thoughts. The first thought is to abandon everything else and cast on some DK weight socks with this. My other thought was I had this full skein of handspun left that I had originally spun for my night shift that I never wound up using, and I have a couple of other little mini bits that I had spun up for that I never used, and I could make another night shift. I don't want to use it in the blanket that I have planned. It's just not what I have in mind for that. I suppose my third option, because I had been thinking about casting on a Mussleburgh hat like everybody else. I totally just said that wrong. Mussleburgh. Like Edinburgh. there's more of that hat to come later in the episode. But I don't know. So I don't mind having this just sitting around. But this is like heart eyes for me. So I really am tempted to either purchase some more Scrappy bundles from Wound Up, or just kind of go through and maybe mix and match a couple of random braids that I have in my stash and spin more like this. I don't know. This makes me so happy though, and I'm actually okay with it just sitting out as yarn art as well. Well, since I just mentioned the Mussleburgh hat, I will show you guys the one that I started because, again, I have been all over the place. I don't remember if I started this before or after my stash tour kind of organization that I did a few weeks ago. I think it was before, because I think I started this before Christmas. I did. I took this on the road with me to knit on. Yeah, I have started a Mussleburgh hat. Mussleburgh. And this is in some Olann yarn. The colorway is Tough Love. This has been in my stash for a few years now. It was another one of those random skeins that I had no idea what to do with other than potentially knit some socks with it. So this was kind of the perfect pattern, I felt like, for busting out a single skein. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to knit. At this point, it's just a lot of stockinette in the round, which is perfect for at the end of the day when I don't want to do anything, when we've just gotten back from the gym or whatever. I am actually not using a stitch count from the pattern. So I had just finished a sock head hat for a Christmas present. I don't think I was done with it the last time I showed you guys, so I'll put a picture on the screen. So based off the way that this pattern is worked up, you're supposed to measure your gauge after you've worked a few inches down from the top. I don't think I was quite getting gauge, but since I had just finished that sock head hat, I just kept increasing until I had the same numbers for the sock head, because I know that fits, which is actually not one of the stitch counts in the pattern. But that's okay. My only thing is I'm a little bit concerned about running out of yarn, but I don't think I'm gonna run out per se. I think it just might not be, I don't know. I think I've got enough. I want to say I was at like 14 inches the last time that I measured, and I think about 18 or 19 inches is when you start the decreases for like the second largest adult size. I don't know. I feel like this pattern is pretty forgiving. It's a pretty easy to modify and just make it work pattern. So let me backtrack a little bit. This is your first time seeing this. It looks like a really long hat, doesn't it? So you cast on at the top, basically knit double the length of the hat, and then at the end you're going to close up and make one really long tube, and then it folds up in on itself to make a double layered hat. And this is a pattern by Ysolda Teague. So it's actually very clever. I have really been enjoying it, and one of my complaints in the past about hand knit hats is they're always a little bit, they let a little bit too much of the breeze come through. So I'm looking forward to trying a double knit hat or double thick hat, because double knitting is its own thing. But all right, I feel like I'm kind of going off the rails here and jibber jabbering. But anyway, this is living in my Gemma B Makes bag that I purchased from Gemma because I saw her knitting the hat and I knew I had to knit one, and it just seemed appropriate. I promise I made show notes, even though I feel like I'm kind of all over the place. So another thing that I cast on when we got home that I was kind of re-inspired once I went through my stash and everything, I rediscovered this yarn that I already had caked up, which is from Kindred Red, and this is the Crystalline colorway. And I started my Aurea, I think that's how you say it, cardigan. It's the Latin word for gold. A-U-R-E-A. I took Latin You wouldn't know it by my pronunciation though. But yes, it is a cardigan, and you do raglan increases with this little faux cable detail going down those increases. So yeah, this is the front, and I am alternating skeins because this yarn is so vibrant. I don't know what you would call it. It is very busy. So I am making this with the intention that it'll be an around the house cardigan. I mean, I have no problems wearing loud colors. It's just, I don't know, it's a little bit busy for me to wear out, but I love it. It's so much fun to knit with. Like, is this practical for every day? Probably not, but is it a lot of fun to knit with? Absolutely. Like, I love coming to these little pops of neon peach. And again, as I said, I'm alternating skeins, so I will knit a row and then purl back, and then I'll just switch strands that I'm working with. I just, as of right now, that seems like the simplest thing to do. I don't really know of any other ways to alternate when you're working flat. So if you know of any alternate ways that work better, I mean, I'm not having problems with it, and I'm okay with the way that it is working up. I'm not getting any pooling or anything like that. I'm always curious to know if there's any, I don't want to say better techniques, but if there's any different techniques out there that I should know about for alternating skeins. Drop them in the comment box down below and let me know. I'm to the point where I'm about 2/3 of the way through the raglan increases on this, and the rows are starting to get really long. Like, I think you increase up to 500 or so stitches for the size that I'm knitting, which is like the 46 or 47 inch bust. So actually the knitting rows aren't horrible. It's the purling rows to get back that are kind of like killing me whenever I have to do them. That means that I just kind of pick this up and I do like 1 or 2 repeats every night since it's growing and getting a little bit longer. But it's kind of nice to just sit there and I can kind of just go slowly on this one, enjoy the process, enjoy this beautiful yarn, and working with it. I'm really enjoying that aspect of this. So yeah, I'm not in a huge rush to finish this or anything. I'm kind of enjoying bouncing between projects, as I've already stated. But this is a pattern. The pattern is by Meghan Nodecker of Pip and Pin. I don't think I mentioned that yet. So she actually has a lot of really pretty designs, and I've kind of got my eye on a few different patterns of hers that I would like to get to in the future. I did have one boo-boo with the increases for the raglans at one point, and I had to tink back like 3 or 4 rows. That was painful. It was like a whole night's work gone, but it would have really bothered me not to fix that. I don't always fix things, but that one definitely needed to be fixed. But other than that, I'm doing the lifted increases along the raglan edge instead of the one where you either knit in the front or the back of the loop below and twist it. I don't know if that's making sense, but I'm doing the lifted increase where you lift up the leg of the stitch underneath it to create kind of an invisible lift, or increase, I should say. I just think it looks really nice and neat. It's kind of what I've started doing with my socks as well, and the toes. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. It is coming right along. That leads me to my niece knits. You guys should be super proud of me because I have finished both panels of this Broadleaf mini. This is the yarn that I had left for the contrast color. I made it work. I got all 17 repeats done for both panels. Huzzah! Yay! So I'm at the point where I need to seam this together and throw some sleeves on this bad boy. This is for my niece, and it was supposed to be a Christmas present. Obviously that's not happening. I do think my gauge is slightly different because it looks like one is slightly shorter in the front, but I think seaming it together and maybe a gentle blocking will work all of that out. She, as I have mentioned, really likes this side better than the pink side. So yeah, I need to get this moving. Again, this is the Broadleaf Mini. It is a pattern by Wool and Pine. It's one of their miniature versions of, you know, a full-size human pattern, an adult-size pattern, that's what I mean. Of course, with brioche, I think it's impossible to knit brioche without making a few errors. I'm not going to point them out to y'all. I know that they're there, but they're not noticeable at all. Olivia's not going to care, so she is just happy that she has Aunt Zoe to sew her things. She calls everything sewing, but yeah. I really need to get this one finished so I can mail both of the sweaters that I knit for my nieces together, which leads me to a finished object. Huzzah! So I completely started and finished this Trescao since the last time that I talked to you guys. This is a pattern by Dervout. She's the designer for the Laurel jumper. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. But yes, this is for my older niece, Lily. She really wanted something with mohair, so I knit this one for her. I started this right after the last podcast that I recorded, and I finished it last weekend. I could have finished it sooner, but I was, again, kind of distracted by things. But I was worried about running out of yarn, and I knit the body to the pattern specifications. I did the absolute smallest size because she is kind of tall and willowy. But I'm a little bit concerned about the body being a little too short on her because she's so tall. So I had plenty of leftovers, and I'm considering picking up and knitting the body a couple more inches. I might block it and see how much it grows first, but I want her to be able to wear it for a little while, and they wear leggings a lot, so I think that it would be a little bit more flattering for her to have a little bit of length on there. So yeah, I haven't woven in any ends or taken any of my stitch markers off. My thought is to finish the broadleaf and then determine how much steam I have to alter this Trescao a little bit. But for this one, I didn't even tell you guys what yarns I used for that. If you've been here before, you'll know that the pink is some Ba La Jolla, and the like blue-green is from Spectrum Fibre. This is some Black Elephant in the colorway Deja Vu, and this is my colorway Glowbug on mohair, which I still need to add to the shop. But yeah, I really, really adore this combination. I'm not sure how much it's coming across on the screen, but it's kind of just got ever so mellow of that kind of pastel neon tone with the gray yarn, and the gray yarn has little speckles of pink and blue and green that just kind of complemented this really nicely. I did finish something. I finished two things actually, which I will get to next. I finished up these handspun socks that I was working on this is from Wound Up Fiber Arts. Again, shocker, in the nest egg colorway. Again, I've kind of shown these a few times in their various stages of knitting. So I have a decent amount of fingering weight or sock weight handspun here. I don't know if I could get a pair of shorties out of this. I might try to do that. If not, I don't know. I really like this colorway though. It's very, very subtle. It's very pretty. So these got done while we were traveling. Sock knitting is the perfect travel knitting in my opinion. I'm not going to wax on too long about them because they're just vanilla socks out of Handspun by my favorite yarn fiber dyer that I've talked about multiple times. So if you want to hear a little bit more, you can go back to the previous episode. But that does mean that I have been knitting some more socks because, again, I like to knit socks. This project, again, was born of my stash clear out organization day. It was more like a week. It took me like 3 days to get through everything. But I decided to cast on some shorty stocks, and this was with a leftover like 50 grams from, this is some junk yarn, and I believe the colorway is called Leslie. could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And this is one of the colors that I used when I did a test knit for Wool and Pine for their cowl. The Calliope cowl, I think is what it was called. So I used these two for that cowl, and this is also from Olann, but I don't remember the name. So I'm thinking I'll use this at least for the heel, maybe for the cuff. I'm a little bit concerned about how much yarn that I have, since I'm just making some toe-up shorties here. I think I'll be okay. We shall see. I think I'll be all right. Definitely going to use it for the heel. If I need to use it for the cuff, I will also use it for the cuff. But these have just been, again, some more vanilla couch knitting. This is my sock bag here. So I got a message from a customer asking me about my Summer Nights colorway, and I had actually pulled this one aside from my stash as well to cake up. So it was like coincidence that she messaged me on the same day that I was getting ready to cake this up. She wanted to see a sample knit up, so I started some socks in Summer Nights as well. And for this one, I'm just working from both ends of the yarn cake. This bag is going to be a huge tangled mess here when I'm done. It's the sacrifice I make for all of you good people, though. So yeah, again, toe-up socks, just kind of chugging along on some vanilla knitting here. I've been wearing a lot of my hand knit socks around the house since, you know, it's January and it's freaking cold. And I'm noticing that some of them are a little bit loose on my feet, and I've normally done a 72 stitch sock in the past. So these two that I just showed you, I'm doing a 68 stitch sock, and I'm curious about the fit for, you know, just wearing around the house, if that's going to be a little bit better. I will probably make this a full length sock. I might do something on the leg just to give me a little bit more knitting interest. And I'll probably do an afterthought heel because I have not ever tackled a heel flap and gusset from the toe up. That leads me to my other thought about wearing hand knit socks a lot in the winter time is I really prefer the fit of the heel flap and gusset, especially for walking around the house. For my foot, the afterthought heel tends to slip off of my heel, especially if I have my slippers and my socks on. There's one pair in particular that really just kind of gets under my foot and it drives me crazy. So while I love the convenience of knitting an afterthought heel, and if I'm wearing them with shoes, they tend to be okay. But like just around the house, if I'm kind of slipping around a whole lot, I find that they are not that great. I probably should look up how to do a toe-up heel flap and gusset, and I don't know, maybe I'll try that with these, because I feel like I want a few more pairs of heel flap and gusset socks. I've got a lot of afterthought heels. That's what I've been knitting a lot of recently. So yeah, I'd like to add a few more heel flap and gusset socks to my sock bins. And then since this is the sock bag, I haven't worked on these in ages. Like I think I was working on them in the fall. I'm not even sure what they looked like the last time you guys saw them. These are some, again, vanilla toe-up socks. The yarn is from Malia Made It in her Acid Rainbow colorway. I think I promised somebody these as a Christmas present, but clearly that didn't happen. She doesn't care. So yeah, I literally have this much of both balls of yarn to get through. I just want to knit it all and use it all up. Okay, I have a yellow, green, and a blue stripe left, and then I will start the ribbing for these. So yeah, these are my socks. I should probably finish at least one pair before casting on another pair of socks. That's a lot of neon socks in this bag. So yeah, 3 pairs of ongoing neon socks living in this bag. I believe that is everything that I have to share with you guys as far as what I have actually been knitting and spinning. I want to get my Laurel started. I want to make some progress on some of these other things, get the Broadleaf and the Trescao out of the house before I really dive into a few other projects that I want to start. But I did want to let y'all know that I have dyed up some of my spruced up colorway, and this is the colorway that I dyed for my Ponderosa, which is by Wool and Pine. So yes, I have dyed up some of this colorway. It is now in the shop. I have it on sock yarn and on MCN fingering weight. So yeah, I really enjoy dyeing this. It was a really fun one to play with in the dye pot, layering on the blues and the yellows to make that very specific shade of green. I'm sure that there is a dye powder out there that is pretty close to this specific color, but to me, that's one of the beauties of hand-dyed yarn, is you get those subtle variations by layering and building color upon itself. So again, these are in my shop. It's my birthday this weekend, so I think I'm gonna run a birthday sale through the weekend. So yeah, I think that just about does it for me. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff if you enjoyed today's video. Reach out to me or Gemma if you want to join the Laurel along. Again, that's gonna be starting on February 1st. Let's chat yarn colors, combinations. What do you have picked out? Based off of my track record, I will go ahead and say that I will see you guys in about a month or so. I really enjoy sitting down and recording these. If not, keep up with me on Instagram. That's usually where I am the most active. Yeah, so that does it. I hope that you all are doing well and that your knitting is bringing you joy, and I will see you again soon. So for today, that is and based off of my past track record, I'm going to go ahead and say that I will probably see you guys in about a month or so. Down crows being all